What is going on, you guys? Oh, I'm feeling good. It has been a while since I've done the Rockney cast. I'm so glad that you're joining me for another fantastic episode. For this episode, we're going to cover the Circadian Code by Dr. Satchin Panda. So we will cover a number of different topics in this particular episode. This could be life-changing for you. But first of all, I just want to express my infinite gratitude to all of you on the front end. A lot of you have probably been wondering, oh my God, where did he go? I've missed him. What's going on? Well, I've had some personal issues that I've been addressing, but those are all now resolved, and we're ready to get started with a number of really good episodes. We're going to be covering a lot of different topics in the weeks and months ahead, so stay tuned for the high quality content on the Rockneycast, and thanks for tuning in. So for this episode, we are going to cover something that is deceptively simple, but life-changing. And that is your circadian code, something I really hadn't thought a lot about, but it may be one of the most important things that you've never actually thought about. So for this episode, I'm going to cover how I learned about the circadian code, how it got on my radar, three important tips related to when you sleep, when you eat, and your movement throughout the day. And then at the end of this episode, I'm going to cover how you kind of know whether you need to read this book by Dr. Satchin Panda to see whether your circadian load, I don't want to go there, your circadian code is in alignment. Because this is one of these things that if you don't get right, you are going to be suffering a lot of bad things. You could be getting fat. You could be getting insulin resistant. You could be anxious and be like, oh my God, I can't concentrate. Your relationships could deteriorate. You could have anxiety and depression. This is a big deal. And it is a relatively simple thing to address. And we're going to explain how you can get there. So first, I just want to explain how I discovered the circadian code. Many of you probably know, based upon my past episodes on Tawkat Ali, which by the way is totally taking off. I don't know, some of you dudes out there, I'm going to do some follow-up episodes on Tawkat Ali. You know, there's an episode on Joe Rogan where Dr. Andrew Huberman, my major man crush, mentioned Tawkat Ali, the thing that will increase your testosterone. So I listen to the Huberman Lab all the time, and I know that I'll really have made it if you ever can get on one of my episodes. So hopefully that happens someday. But I listen to the Huberman Lab, and it's all about optimization of you. How you get better sleep, how you get better exercise, how you get better cognitive functioning. And what I love about Dr. Huberman is he's not one of these academics that's like, what is and whatever will be. And like, you guys are all like a bunch of losers because you're not a PhD. He's more like, hey, I got all these really good ideas and I want to share them with you so you can improve your life. And he mentioned this Dr. Satchin Panda, I believe it was on his episode in time restricted eating. He did a whole episode on that. As many of you know that I love intermittent fasting. And he talked about the relationship between food and when you eat, how important that is, and aligning your food intake with when you eat and when you like the timing of your food take, not necessarily how much you're eating, but the timing. And he mentioned this guy called Dr. Satchin Panda, and I've had this huge interest in intermittent fasting. I thought this is a book that really has to be on my radar because it is a very simple intervention that you can make in your life that's going to totally transform your life, and it's free. So first off, who is Dr. Satchin Panda? Doesn't that sound like a cool name? Like, don't you wish you could be Dr. Satchin Panda? He's one of these academics. It's kind of like Andrew Huberman. There's an emerging group of academics that actually kind of think that their role is actually to share their knowledge with the world in the way that people could actually understand and use to their own benefit, Dr. Satchin Panda begins with this beautiful vignette. First of all, he's a doctor of, I believe, circadian biology at the University of California, San Diego. So he's really smart. And what I love this book is he starts this book with a moment of gratitude to thank the people of the United States, because he was essentially a student here on some sort of visa, and he was applying for his permanent residency, and he submitted his application on September 10th, 2011. And then the next day, of course, September 11th, 2001 occurred. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get my citizenship now. I'm never going to get my residency even. And he did. And so he starts off the book with a moment of gratitude, thanking the American people for the opportunity to do what he did. And I am so glad that he did, because circadian rhythm and your sleep, if you're not sleeping well right now, in terms of when you get up and when you go to bed, that may be the first intervention to start it. And in fact, if I were, how like motivational high school speakers, they're usually not very good. And they usually end their last little take home. If you guys forget everything you hear and you remember just one thing, remember this one thing. So if I was like the average motivational speaker in a high school, if you just remember one thing, I think in terms of improving your life, your sleep is probably one of the most important things. And a lot of you are kind of like, oh, yeah, like I need to listen to a podcast to know that I need to sleep. But it's much more profound and deep about that, because getting your sleep right is so critical to human performance and optimization. Conversely, getting your sleep wrong is a formula for total misery in terms of depression, anxiety, and all of these super negative consequences. So to channel my motivational speaker, like, Matt Foley, if you remember one thing, remember to get your sleep right. And so we're going to tell you how to do that and some simple interventions that you can make. The other thing that I love about getting your sleep right and getting your circadian rhythm optimized is it's kind of like intermittent fasting. It doesn't cost a thing. There are so many interventions like the bleeding heart liberals. They're like, oh my God, I could change my life, but I'm not going to, because there's all these people that the government needs to provide me a program. And here I'm going to channel like a social worker that's like, yeah, well, there's all these different services that we need available, and only if the government would provide more would we be able to do all these great things, but the government won't, so we're just gonna, hold in our butt cheeks and just be all miserable because the government won't solve our life. Well, actually, you don't need the government to optimize your circadian biology, and you don't need any money to optimize your human biology. All you need is the knowledge, man. That's all you need. That's all you need. You just need the knowledge. And your ass better listen to this whole podcast. You actually learn how to. At this point, you're like, oh my God, he's totally distracted. I'm this far and he hasn't said a goddamn thing. Well, I am going to explain how you can optimize your sleep, your nutrition, and your movement. And it's going to totally transform your life. So the first thing I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about, first of all, what the hell is a circadian rhythm? What does circadian mean? Well, you guys know what a circle is, right? So it's really a function of two words, circa and diem. Yeah, circa and diem. So it's circadian is essentially a mix of those two words. It's kind of like brunch, except it's applied to biology. Circa, diem, circadian. And it is this fascinating area of human biology that really has been developed in the last 20 to 25 years. And it's one of those areas that probably your doc hasn't probably counseled you a lot on, because the science is still emerging. And some of the key discoveries only happened in like 2002 through Dr. Satchin Panda. And, like in the 60s and 70s, like all the scientists knew that circadian biology was something that was in the animal kingdom, right? Bats. When you get a bat in your house, when do they get out? They get in the night. Bats are nocturnal creatures. The birds, they are creatures that start singing at the crack of dawn. All animals have this beautiful rhythm that is linked to the day. And we've been in harmony with this rhythm for like 1 billion years. Yeah, you at one point, like 1 billion years ago, your ancestors were like these just little blobs on a rock. And they started like all of a sudden like coming alive. And they're like, oh my God, man, I'm coming alive. And they started to rhythmically adapt to the sun. And then as we evolved into human beings, we started this natural evolutionary rhythm that was in alignment with the sun. And in the 70s and 80s, a lot of scientists were like, wait a minute, we are animals. I mean, hey, by the way, I'm a total Lutheran Christian, but I do believe in evolution. I do believe in Charles Darwin. And this is something that is just undoubtable, indisputable, that we are creatures of evolutionary biology. And for so long, I think because we had this, I love the Greeks, but they had this whole mind body thing and soul, and that humans, we kind of exempted ourselves. And I think Christians we did this a little bit. We exempted ourselves from the animal kingdom. Well, all we really are is we are evolved monkeys. I'm sorry, we are. I am, you are. And we are rhythmically adapted throughout the day. So if you do not get in alignment with your circadian biology, you likely are going to feel totally miserable. And it's actually a major crisis costing our country billions of dollars a year. And it's of relatively recent origin. And why is that? Well, first off, up until about the Industrial Revolution, there was no need at all to worry about circadian biology. And why is that? Well, the reason why that is that circadian biology is related to light. And in particular, the light that comes from the sun, the visible light spectrum, and for the most part, the intense light from the sun, the blue light, is something that for thousands and millions of years emerged in the morning. And then in the evening, obviously, it went down. And we had no ability to be able to extend that blue light throughout the day. Well, what's Dr. Satchin Panda's key contribution? In 2002, he and other scientists, 2002, which is like 20 years ago. I was still in law school when this stuff was being discovered. Actually, I'd already graduated from law school. I was 27 years old. Yeah, I'm 40, 48. So they discovered something called melanopsin. And to channel my high school motivational speaker, if you remember only one thing, remember this from the podcast. It's melanopsin. Well, what the hell is melanopsin? Melanopsin is a light sensing protein that tells your brain whether to wake up or to go to sleep, and whether your brain should release certain chemicals that make you active or make you sleepy. That's it, melanopsin. And if you learn how light and melanopsin will get you to wake up and go to sleep, you're going to totally optimize your life. Why is sleep so important? What happens when you sleep? Well, obviously, you kind of all know that you need to sleep. And if you don't sleep, you're miserable. But it's even more profound than that. When you sleep, there should be another name for sleep. It should be called life generating, muscle building, youth generating process. Yeah, I'm going to attack the old Anglo-Saxons. Sleep doesn't really explain what it does. It should explain what it does. Sleep gives you life, makes you look younger, makes you burn fat, regenerates your skin, your cells, your eyes, your energy, everything. It's the process by which you renew you. And if you don't optimize it, it's hard to burn fat, it's hard to create muscle, it's hard to have memory consolidation. It's where your skin and gut lining get repaired. It's where your muscle repairs. It's where you get, if you're optimized and you get into deep sleep, you get releases of growth hormone. And if you don't optimize your sleep, you can't optimize your day. And so here's where, once they really learned that there's this thing called melanopsin, Dr. Satchin Panda, what I love about this book is he's also like Dr. Andrew Huberman in that a lot of professors think their knowledge is going to change the world or that everyone should care. But especially like if you're in the social sciences and you're kind of an asshole professor, you're like, oh, well, you're too dumb to be able to understand what I've said. And it's all, the whole goal is to make everything complicated. You can't even read poetry unless you have a PhD. You can't even read. I had one person tell me once, you're not a historian unless you actually have a doctorate. Without a doctorate, you aren't anything. Well, Dr. Satchin Panda, total badass. And Dr. Andrew Huberman, my major man crush, disagree. They're like, no, the point of academia is to improve people's lives and to present it in a public in a way in which guys like me can understand. So the key finding of the book and the key recommendation of the book as it pertains to light and sleep is as follows. Optimize your access to light. How do you do that? And here I want to focus on a key time frame that's outlined, and totally read this book and buy it, because I can't explain everything in this book. And don't be so lazy. Do your own reading. Don't rely on the Rocking Cast. All of that is what I'm here for. So I can read the books and share the knowledge. But as it relates to light, I want to focus on a key change. Like, where do you start in terms of getting the light right? Well, I'll tell you where you start. The key time frame to focus on is between 6 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. That is the key time frame in terms of access to light. Well, first of all, what triggers the melanopsin, this light sensing protein? It is blue light, the light that is the most intense light of the visible light spectrum that you get from access to the sun, okay? So why is this important, and why are all of us just totally miserable? We're like, oh my God, I haven't slept in like a week. Well, it's because now that we have these things called cell phones, oh my God, these things are like, oh geez. These guys are like, you know, the cell phone is something that emits blue light. And so why is that important? And what else emits blue light? Computer screens emit blue light, TVs emit blue light, and cell phones obviously emit blue light. These are kind of the big three blue light emitters. Well, if you're emitting blue light throughout the day, and especially in the evening, that is when your circadian biology is starting to shut down. That's where you're getting your melatonin to rise, and you should start feeling sleepy. But one of the problems that we have is when you go to bed with your cell phone, when you're watching Netflix until 11:30 at night, when you're stuffing your pie hole at 11:30, all of those different things are telling your brain to be awake. And when your brain is awake, what does it emit? It emits like a stress hormone, and the energy and the like things like cortisol, for example, to tell you to be awake and be alive and to be movement, and other hormones as well. And what it does is it instructs your brain to get your melatonin down so you're awake. Well, the problem with that is that if you're awake, you can't get to sleep, and your mind starts racing. And if you can't get to sleep, then you're not going to get this deep restorative sleep that will give you youth, that will build your muscles, that will help you burn fat. So that's the first take home, is that limit your access to blue light, especially between 6 and 10. A lot of you are like, well, you know, I really want to I want to watch Netflix. I really have to do it. Okay, well, you can do that. But it's very critical that at least within 1 or 2 hours that you try to limit your blue light. I know that there are blue light blocking glasses, and he doesn't take a super big position on that, at least I recall from the book, but that might be something you'd want to try, especially in the evening. So limit blue light in the evening. That's tip number one. The flip side of that is that then if you get to sleep at the right time and you get 8 to 9 hours, which is what he recommends for adults, and then in the morning, this is the other key tip, you get exposure to the sun. Take a 10 to 15-minute walk in the morning. And if you're too lazy, just go outside and just look up into the sky and start getting that blue light. That will then activate your, tell your body to lower the melatonin and to get your body ready for the day, and to tell your brain, now is time to be awake. Now is time to get things done. So those are really two key findings relating to light. When you expose yourself to light. Now, throughout the day, there's a number of different things that he recommends. Access to natural light throughout the day. Now, one of the things that I have done to some degree, as you can see, I got blue eyes and I have sensitive eyes to the sun, but I used to always wear sunglasses. And for the most part, I still do wear sunglasses sometimes, but I've even tried to limit my access to sunglasses during the day because sunglasses block the blue light. That's their intended function. Well, what's the problem with that? Is that it's affecting your circadian biology, and it's basically, if you're blocking the blue light, you're not you could be blocking your body might think needs to go into sleep, right? And it also kind of gets you in rhythm with the circadian biology. So if you're wearing a lot of sunglasses because you think it looks cool or something like that, try to just take them off from time to time. Now, if you're going to go skiing during the day and you're going to go hike the Himalayas, don't like take off your sunglasses and get, blindness, right? I'm not telling you to do that. Have some judgment, people. I thought you said to take off sunglasses. Like, use your own judgment on this. But here, any change that you make, whether it's this or intermittent fasting or any new protocol that I recommend, start slowly and try it out and get used to it and adapt. But I think that might be one thing too, if you're not sleeping right. So when you expose yourself to blue light is absolutely key. And so in summary, for this first little part, limit your blue light between 6 and 10 in the evening. And if you still want to watch your Netflix, try some blue light blocking glasses, and to lower your lights in the evening. The orange lights, the red lights do not impact the melanopsin in the same way. And in the morning, expose yourself to blue light in the form of the sun, and get out and start moving and just get that exposure. And then during the day, if you're an office worker, it's very critical. If you're stuck inside all day, do try to get out at least for your lunch break and spend 15 to 30 minutes in the sun so that you're getting this access to that. And if you're not an office worker, try to get outside so that you can get this exposure, so that you get in the sync of the rhythms of the day. So that's tip number one. So tip number two relates to when you eat. So this second tip relates to when you eat. And friends, this is super important. And I came across this topic again through Andrew Huberman, my major man crush, because he had talked about the relationship between when you eat and fat burning. And so that's one of the reasons why I read this entire book, because it's very, very important. So I'll share with you, when I was 300 pounds and I looked like this, here's what my evening routine was like. I would eat dinner around 6:30, 7:30, usually then get a box of wine and sit down and watch some Netflix with my family, right? And so what would happen would be is that I would then ingest the calories throughout the evening in the form of the wine, and I've already eaten my dinner. And of course, what does alcohol do? It's an appetite stimulant. And usually then I'd close the evening with something healthy, which it is healthy, but a little cereal So here's what I would do. I do a couple bowls of cereal, and then I would have some blueberries and milk. And so I was like, blueberries, milk, cereal, good to go. Why was I 300 pounds? I mean, I'm eating healthy. I'm not eating junk food. What's the problem here as it relates to circadian biology? Is I want you to think about a series of triggers. What triggers you to be awake and what triggers you to be asleep. Well, light, melanopsin, class, are you listening, is one thing that will tell your body to be awake. But probably the second most important thing is food. Food tells your body to be awake. And food is a signal to your brain that I need to be awake. And why is that important? And this is why it's important as it pertains to weight loss. If you have been trying to lose weight and you've been stuck, look at the timing of when you eat and why. Because here's something that he's very clear on, and this is very clear from the research on that he's done and published in peer-reviewed journals, relates to weight loss while you sleep. And here's why that's important. You cannot burn and store fat at the same time. Let me repeat that again. You cannot burn and store fat at the same time. When is your key weight loss really occurring? It's when you sleep. Well, how does that relate to when you're eating, as explained by Dr. Satchin Panda and a lot of other people, like Dr. Jason Fung and everyone that basically adopts, probably Gary Tubbs thinks this, people that believe in the insulin theory of obesity. By the way, that's still the minority view. So a lot of you are like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's calories in, calories out. Well, I'm not a calories in, calories out person. So, but here's the key. When I was eating, when 300-pound Rockney was eating at the end of the evening, what was happening with inside my body as it applies to circadian biology? I was telling my body to be awake. And once your body is and to receive calories, well, why is that bad? Is that when you're not moving and you're receiving calories, what is likely to happen? You're likely to store fat. The other thing is too, is that you are triggering an insulin response. And what does insulin do? Insulin is a fat storage hormone that then brings the body into your cells for energy, and the parts that it cannot get in for purposes of energy in the form of your glucose is stored as fat. And that is obviously a delayed process after you eat. So if you eat at 10:30 at night and then you go to sleep, your body then is in a fat storage mode when it should be in a fat burning mode. So as it applies to Dr. Satchin Panda's work, he recommends an eating window. So he's he's not a hardcore faster. He recommends a very moderate eating window of time restricted eating, which for me is kind of like almost not time restricted eating, but he recommends that you eat between your first meal of the day at about 7:30 or 8, and that you eat your last meal of the day at about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So he really recommends a 10-hour eating window. And when you're outside of that eating window, you can have some liquids, you can have some coffee, but alcohol, if you're gonna drink every day, which I don't advise you to do, you should do that before dinner or at dinner. You should not do it right before you go to bed, because that's also signals, it can trigger an insulin response. And it also signals to your organ your liver has to start processing those toxins. It's telling your body to be awake. So when your body should be in the repair, life-giving rejuvenation mode, which is what we call sleep, your body is in the fixing, trying to discharge toxins, the fat storage mode. So that is something that he really strongly recommends that you not eat. So now one thing that I do not do that he recommends, and I'll tell you why, is his recommendation is that your biggest meal of the day should be in the morning when you're more insulin sensitive. and your body is more likely to receive the nutrients and optimally use the nutrients that you're eating, so that it doesn't get, so the more optimally you use that, the more likely you are not to store the fat. Why don't I do that? I probably should. I probably should have an eating window where I'm eating my meals, early in the day and then fasting throughout the rest of the day. Well, the reason I don't do that, it's just very simple. Because eating is a social thing, and for dinner, you eat with your family, and so I don't want to really impair or impinge that social time, because social functioning is very important too, for your rest, your recharge, and those sorts of things. So it's mainly a conscious choice that I'm making, but I am not optimizing by eating in the evening. You should be having your biggest meal in the morning. Now, if that's not as big a deal for you, you and your family don't eat every your meals together. Um, Consider eating your biggest meal of the day in the morning. And then he also clearly, I haven't talked to him about this, but it seems like Dr. Panda is clearly essentially adapting or adopting this sort of insulin theory of obesity model, because he really talks about insulin sensitivity and avoiding sugars and these sorts of things. So the timing of your eating is absolutely important. So in summary, class, if you've been listening, I hope you're still there. For timing of eating, biggest meal of the day should be breakfast, and the lightest meal of the day should be dinner. You should not eat anything after 6:30 to 7. You should give your body at least 2 to 3 hours to get that food out of your system and to not have any insulin response, just so that you're going to bed in an optimal state so you can burn fat, rejuvenate your skin, rejuvenate your muscles, get the growth hormone, get the rejuvenation youth process called sleep optimized. In the morning, you should wait basically about an hour to allow your body to kind of wake up, be a little bit active, and then consider doing your first meal of the day, relating, essentially 7:30 or 8, and then basically have essentially a 10-hour eating window. So, and then with your light, limit your light exposure after 6 o'clock and start getting it within a half hour to 45 minutes the time that you awake. So those are points 1 and point 2. So point 3, this gets into sort of a very important topic, which is, well, when the hell do I exercise? And this is another interesting topic too, because ultimately, it's not how much you exercise, it's when you exercise daily and when your body is most primed for exercise. So a couple different things with this. Let me also share a habit that I have. And this one really wasn't necessarily a bad habit, but it does affect this life-giving youth regeneration process called sleep quite significantly, which is, I also used to kind of try to exercise. Even when I was 300 pounds, it wasn't totally dysfunctional. I did still exercise, it just didn't do much for me. But I would exercise late in the evening. At the time, I was living at the University of Iowa City, and I'd go down to the gym, and I would exercise, 7:30, 8:30, 9, something like that, and get back around 9:30, and then, go to bed and usually eat a meal, which we know why that's bad. Why is that bad? Because when you're exercising late in the evening, it's stressful, and it sends cortisol to your brain, and it's a signal to be awake. You move. Movement is consistent with being awake. Exercise does not make you sleepy while you're doing it. It will afterwards, but not while you're doing it. And there's some recovery time that you're in an active, stressful state. So do try to limit your exercise in the evening. And the best form of exercise in the evening is an after dinner walk, so that you can absorb some of the meal that you've eaten to make your body more insulin sensitive, start relaxing you for the evening, and to gently get yourself into this peaceful, restful state that we call sleep. When is the optimal part? Well, to exercise, here he talks about as cavemen and women, when we were evolving, when was our most active time of the day? Well, you would get up and you would hunt for tubers and berries in the morning, early morning activity. And at the end of the day, you would also do hunting and these sorts of things. You would try to hunt the mastodon at the end of the day and hopefully kill it, and to be able to then rest and digest in the evening for your parasympathetic nervous system. So when is your body most primed to accept the benefits and to optimize the benefits of exercise? Here he recommends between 3 and 5:30 in the afternoon. Now here's just going to be a practical matter. Who the hell is available to exercise at 3:30 to 5 in the afternoon? That's a good question. But if you're retired or you have a job where it's an option for you and you have a choice, you should consider that in terms of an exercise time frame, because that then will allow you to then optimize your nutrient intake, and then you will get sleepy from that. And hopefully, you're doing that maybe outside. Then you can get sort of good, essentially optimization of your sleep and your exercise in the afternoon. So here, in terms of intensity of exercise, he thinks that in the morning, when you get a morning walk, 15 to 30 minutes, will get that melanopsin that will optimize your brain. You get movement, you'll start getting ready for the day. Your most intense exercise should be between 3 and 5:30 in the afternoon. And what happens when you optimize exercise and time restricted eating together? Or here's where you start seeing this synergy between the two concepts. You get increased muscle repair to help to build your muscle mass, but also increased physical activity helps you soak up the glucose from the exercise. So essentially you get the double benefits. And then if you're getting your circadian rhythm optimized, that once your exercise breaks down your muscle, so you need to make sure that you're optimizing that time with sleep. All your muscle repair is really occurring while you're sleeping. So if you're not optimizing your sleep, you're wasting your time for your exercise because you're breaking down your muscle without the opportunity to restore and repair itself. So that is sort of connecting. Those are kind of three key tips from the book. Optimize your light and when you get exposed to the blue light, when you reduce your self to the blue light, when you eat and when you shouldn't eat, and when you move and when you shouldn't move. And if you optimize all these three things together, you're going to completely transform your life. So isn't that really cool? And finally, and this is something I promised at the beginning of this episode, how do you know if your circadian rhythm is in sync or not? Well, first off, if you're having trouble sleeping and you're having trouble getting up, your circadian rhythm is probably all effed up. So I would recommend, if you want to start trying to getting that lined up, start limiting your blue light and your eating between this critical window of 6 to 12, okay? And once you start getting that, you should start and try it over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but once you start getting that optimized, and then you start waking up, here's how you're going to know that your circadian rhythm is in sync. If you wake up and you're feeling tired, you are not aligning your circadian rhythm. But if you wake up and you're feeling like you're awake, you are optimized. So on the front end, so once you start this process of exposing yourself to light in the morning and limiting your light in the evening, and then throughout the day, making sure something as simple as taking off your sunglasses for a little bit while you're driving, so you're getting more of the blue light. Because the more intense the blue light is during the day, it's kind of a little bit like a healthy roller coaster. You're lowering your melatonin throughout the day, for then the rebound to rise in the evening. The problem with our modern lights is none of us are wired for that. So the melatonin goes all over the place. The body's getting all the signals in terms of what it should be doing. And the body's like, oh my God, I have no idea what I should be doing. And you get sick. And then you go to the doctor and your doctor starts giving you a lot of pills, and you're even worse off because they're not really optimizing a lot of this stuff. So, for my high school motivational speaker, if you can optimize your sleep through knowledge of your own circadian biology, and please buy this book. And if you do, send a thank you note to Dr. Satchin Panda at the University of University of California, San Diego, and tell him Rockney Cole told you to buy this book, and then he should be on my podcast. Buy this book. I'll put a link down in the show notes. hit subscribe too. If you're already here, you should hit subscribe so I can build up my listenership and we can continue creating this awesome content. So what do I have in store for the Arachne Cast? I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews. I'm going to do a lot of sharing a lot of the health stuff that I've been learning. I'm eventually going to start getting a driftless travel show that I really want to try to do. So we're going to do a lot of good things. And my goal is to basically release each episode essentially on Tuesday evening. And then I'm going to promote the hell out of it on Wednesday. At least once a week, we're going to be trying to do episodes of the Arachne Cast and keep spreading the word. If you're here this far, tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell your mom. Say, Mom, oh my God, my life was miserable before I started listening to the Arachne Cast, and now it's really great. Tell your mom, your grandma, your cousins, your kids. I've tried to limit my swearing as much as possible so the kids can't, so they can't complain about it. But occasionally you got to swear a little bit, but I'm going to try to be wholesome, spread the word because I have so much gratitude. If you're still here, I have so much gratitude to you. And I want to tell you the things that I'm going to discuss, almost all of them are going to be free. Knowledge about when you eat, knowledge about how to exercise with your own body weight, knowledge about when you should sleep and move. All of it's free. And it's all just through study and knowledge and what I'm starting to acquire in middle age, which is wisdom. So continue to tune in to episodes of the Arachne Cast. Infinite gratitude to each one of you if you made it through this far. We're going to continue to put on high quality episodes, and we are going to work together to build this growing community of members of the Arachne Cast. And I have so much gratitude, and we will continue to do it. Together, you and I have a rendezvous with destiny. Thank you so much. Until next time on the Arachne Cast.